What's up guys, Ronaldo here and welcome here to the part 2 of our PvP tier list here. And I am not alone. Again, I have an expert guest, and with expert I genuinely mean expert. I'm here with Slate, probably the best GvG player here that we have in the English content creation scene. Just last season, for example, they finished second place. So make sure not only for your GvG to also check her out. She also has some nice guides that I just saw before for Nightmare Void Rift with the Torador cheese, with the anti-healing and much more. And with that said, welcome Slate to this tier list.
Hey, thank you for having me on. I am very excited to talk about my favorite content, which is anything GvG. So yeah, I'm very happy to be here and very excited to see how we, do this tier list.
Definitely. So how we're gonna do it now is we're first gonna explain you guys the different tiers, what they mean. Then we're gonna go over what you wanna look for when you are building your GvG team for yourself, and then we can go over the rankings from role by role. So defenders, marksmen, and so forth, and you will have the timestamps down below. Now, in terms of the tiers, right, we have first up the God tier up to the A tier. These are kind of the tiers with the heroes that you are going to look for to build your roster. Then B to C tier is going to be more of filler units if you don't have kind of the end game units, or if you are more in the early game, you want to resolve back to these. Then you have the Giselle tier. Giselle is as this is the tier. Single target magic damage. What does that tier kind of mean? What's the problem with that tier?
So the problem with single target magic dealers is there is a demon soldier called the Pharaoh, who is the effectively the magic version of a tank, and he absorbs magic damage like no other. So if you're using a single target magic dealer, it will all get focused onto this guy. You still won't take him down, and then effectively that unit becomes completely obsolete. So even though there are a lot of really good single target mages within GvG, they just don't work. So
basically, if someone is attacking you and you have a single target magic damage as your main kind of single target damage dealer, and this guy has a brain, maybe 2 active brain cells is all he needs, he's gonna place down that Pharaoh, and even though your hex might be a menace against that demon soldier, your hex is just hitting like a wet noodle. He could almost be Giselle himself.
Yeah, which is very unfortunate.
It is. Then BP.
Yeah. So the thing is obviously GvG is not just about defense, it is also about attacking. And when you're attacking, you need to affiliate your demon soldiers to have as much BP as possible. And so there are certain things like awakenings and obviously gear that do make a difference. And then there are certain heroes that just are insane for their natural BP. So for example, Uridan, he has the highest BP of any non-lord, except for our new girl, who's going to pop up later on in the video. But yeah, so obviously when you are looking for that, that's why we have that category as well, for heroes that you wouldn't necessarily use in GvG, but you do use for your affiliations.
Definitely. Something that should not be underestimated, like this BP makes a huge difference in these attacks. And then for the untested one, we will include pretty much most of the new heroes with some strategies and theory crafting that we did beforehand. But there are certain heroes that are just impossible to rank due to factors that they're either broken and they just are bugged. That's right, it's not just Lucius. I think Slate is now trying to get the footage of these bugs of that certain hero. She will make a video on that as well. We can already talk about him. It's going to be Init. You want to say what the bug really is?
Yeah, so basically it was another creator, Laurel, who put me onto it, basically saying that the testing done in the Slavic community basically shows that the way Init is meant to boost damage doesn't actually work. So the idea is to try and get some of that footage and then make some noise about it, because obviously the whole idea is we earn Init by doing this entire Odyssey quest, and it will be a real shame if it turns out he's completely useless at the end. So yeah, definitely look out for something on that in the future when the testing gets tested. But yeah, it'd probably be a Laurel, or I might do it with him. We'll see. We'll see. But very sad.
Exactly. Enid is going to be one, and also one that I can already tell you guys is going to be Lucius, because he has insane upside, right? He has insane upside for GvG with kind of the rise of Watchers, but he will be the core kind of unit that you will need if you want to make that Watcher team work, with the layer buffs coming in, with stable Watcher units that we're going to talk about later, because they have quite good pieces, and he is kind of the piece that you, the missing piece that you want, right?
Yeah.
Because I can show you guys real quick what is the reason why he is going to be staying there, unlike many of the other units, is because you can't do any theory crafting unless you know one thing, and that is, if you are able to deactivate his ultimate in GvG, he all of a sudden is kinda a mini Silas, because his demonic embrace burst is just disgustingly high. He has some defense threat as well on top of that, and will be, in terms of single target damage, incredible, right? The defense threat is really the big part that will make a big difference, and if he pops his ult, his damage will be neglectable. So it's really about, can you make it that he will use his demonic stance and he's all of a sudden there, or if he just always uses his ult, he's going to be there, which is why
and then he's not usable.
Yeah, you cannot place him down. With that said, though, first up, how would you go on to building a team? Like, what you need to look out for?
So the number one component when you are building any GvG team is your tank. And the reason that this is so important is because they are going to be what blocks most of the units getting to the portal. There are 3 flyers, but pretty much everything else is ground. So you absolutely need a tank. Then you need a healer to make sure that your tank survives. Then you need some kind of magic damage that is ideally AoE, because like we said, single target magic just doesn't hold up in GvG. You need something that is going to hit air. It can be single target, it can be AoE, but you have to have something to hit air. And then you have what I call a flex spot. So usually you do want 2 ground units, so that you don't just get completely overrun by an enemy's like set of demon soldiers. But yeah, that can be a secondary tank or a fighter. And so yeah, as long as you have those roles filled, that is how you make a good GvG defense.
Okay, so then let's go over the first role real quick, and that is the defenders. Now the defenders, they have really one thing that you kind of want to look out for, right, if you are looking for defenders, and that is to have invulnerability, because these demon soldiers, they hit like a truck, and they can overrun the likes of an Oleg. So we all know him, for example. He is the prime example of what you wanted to see, right?
Absolute god tier, no questions. Best tank in the game for GvG. No, like
double
in terms of pure tanking,
and on top of that, some utility as well.
Yeah.
Then let's put a few other tanks, and then we go over them. So Oleg, where would you rank him?
So the thing is like, I think because his shield is really good, but it's not really good early game, probably a B tier.
B tier. Then we have Isolde, C tier. She cannot survive.
I'd put her B tier.
B tier?
Yeah, because she's got that Lord bonus for Northerners. That can really help boost it, and those extra shields that pop up do a lot of damage. So I would put her in B tier.
But she does not survive as your main tank.
No, she's a second tank.
And the thing with Oleg, right, we all love him, but the problem is he kind of kills himself in GvG with that auto ultimate. He just does stop getting these shields up, and that's kind of his problem there. Now let's go over a few more and then talk about them. So I'll just put them all in. We have Trusk in C tier.
C tier, yeah. He's not got any invulnerability, invincibility, so
his damage is also not that high. Like, You're not gonna use him for damage.
So similar to Trusk, I would put Edith next to him. You know, she's got that interesting knockback, but no mechanics herself to survive very well in a GvG fight.
She's just gonna fall over. She's just gonna fall over. It's kind of her problem. Two other units like Broke here that are actually really, really viable, and many of you guys have, are Regulus and Baron, right? Regulus tanks surprisingly well with his ultimate, with his unkillable buff as well. Like I said, maybe gets even higher. He has upside depending on the Watcher's Rise, kinda. And then we have also Baron.
Baron is just such a fantastic option for GvG because he's Nightmare, which is a very popular faction to use, but his invincibility is just fantastic. So yeah, very, very good option to carry you through a lot of the different lower tiers and making your way up. So, I mean, still good at top tier.
He is just, he can even be used quite for some cheeses with his invulnerability and some other invulnerability on top of that. Talking about the Nightmare, I think it's no stretch at all to put Torodor up here. What makes him so good?
It's the stuns. So, I mean, one, he's the Lord of the Nightmare faction, which obviously makes everything so much better. But not only is he a fantastic tank with invulnerability himself, his stun chance is possibly the most infuriating thing ever in terms of trying to hit him. Because one of the main things you try and do with the Torador is to bomb him. But if he stuns you, that's your run over. And surprisingly, it's quite a high chance to actually get that. It's like a 30% chance. So yeah, he's definitely god tier, no doubt.
He is basically one of the main reasons why these Nightmares are so good, right? He is able to tank, he is able to survive, he can revive himself, he has quite decent AoE here as well, and the big, also another big thing for GvG, like we talked about, they have quite high resistances. He is able to actually apply some defense as well, which helps his Nightmare fighters to deal even more damage. He is the Lord for them, and it's just, he's a menace.
Oh, he's phenomenal. He's absolutely phenomenal.
Then another menace, himself.
Cyrus.
He's kind of cheesy as well, right?
Yeah, so the thing is that because of these summons, these skeletons that he pops up, he basically can he doesn't have invincibility himself, but those summons that he does take a huge amount of damage for him, which helps him survive. And he also does AoE himself, but he's absolutely disgusting in a lot of different comps. And because he's an Esotericist Lord, he boosts rage within his faction. So again, you want to pair him with someone like a Boreas, and it's, he's going to be popping off a load as well. So yeah, absolutely fantastic.
So basically similar to Torador, first up, he is a lord for one of the best factions, right? You have pretty much some of the best mages in his factions, and you kind of want one of these in your team. You have kind of cheeses you can do with the skeletons. We can go over certain healers that make his skeletons invulnerable as well.
Yep.
And it's ridiculous.
Yeah. So he basically fills multiple roles, and that to me is what makes a god tier hero god tier, is they do so much more than just what they do. Or like Brock, where Brock is just a fantastic tank that can survive so much stuff. And yeah, so
it's either you do many things at once, or you're just a standalone best unit for the job you do, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Next up, these tanks really be dominating here in this god tier, aren't they? Gone.
Yeah. Chaotic. Basically Chaotic Arbiter are the best teams that you can build in GvG. Gon is a defender himself, so again, that hits that role, and he's a good defender at that. He's not the best tank, but he's a solid tank. But it's mainly the fact that you can then run Chaotic teams beautifully with him. So absolutely, he elevates everything.
Exactly. Like he's super tanky with his ult. He has this where is it? This part right here is also super disgusting. It makes him also extremely tanky. He can where is it? And really the big thing is, in my opinion, and my game is bugging, there we go, that lord bonus is just so good. It's just such a good lord bonus. 20% attack and defense when below 30%. You can build a team that is able to get below 30% HP. And like I said, the defenses are kind of what you really want to break through from these demon soldiers. And having 20% on top of that attack that you already have on your units just makes them shred like crazy. And then next up, last lord, we have King Horse. Now King Horse is strong, just not on the same level as these other guys. He's not as tanky as a Broke here. He doesn't have the faction of a Gone or the cheeses of a Cyrus or the overall versatility of a Torador, right?
Yeah, but northern teams are very good for tanky teams, so he is very good in that respect, and he is a decent tank himself, but he can't be your only tank on the board. He's not strong enough to be your only tank on the board, so that's where he drops down.
And they will get, I have been on the test server, not allowed to talk about the kit, but they will get a crazy strong AoE mage. You'll see it. I think Fasty actually was able to do a video on that, so
exciting.
That's something to look out for. And last but not least, we have a few more. We have Crowdor. Crowdor is super tanky, and I would put him right about here.
Yeah, I think for an early secondary tank, he could do that, exactly that. If you don't have a Broke here, but you somehow have a Haas, or even an Isolde, you could do one of those with Crowdor. He does have quite enough tankiness, but again, it's not that invincibility. So yeah, he's someone that you would sub out quite quickly if you got better, but if you don't have better, he's a good option.
He's basically one step below these guys, but also one step above these, so he just edges in here in the A tier.
Yeah, exactly.
Then two tanks that are not really the main tanks, right? We have Reef and Constance. Now Constance, let's go over Constance.
Constance is my most wanted. She is basically she's S tier for the simple fact that she is 100% needed for an Arbiter squad, which is arguably one of the best teams that you can build in GvG. So for that alone, to me, she's S tier because it allows you to not bring a healer, as well as she does increase the block count. She implies that inspiration, which when you are bringing out someone like Praetus with those effectively lightning strikes, it makes a hell of a lot of difference. So yeah, she's absolutely fantastic. But outside, she's a secondary tank, if that makes sense.
She's basically just profiting a lot from her faction, right? That's kind of thing. And she is one of the core units of her faction, which is why she is up there. If you use her as a tank, right, as a pure tank, get her out of here. But that's not what she's here for. And you guys need to understand that. She's not a tank. That's not her role, really. Right?
No, she's support, basically.
Exactly. Then Reef.
He's arguably one of the best second tanks, so I'd put him in the A slot as well, because he does crowd control, he does AoE, and yeah, you put him behind Osiris and it's disgusting. But he cannot tank on his own.
Definitely.
No.
He is just, like I said, he's a good secondary ground unit that you can have. Does a lot of AoE and stuns with his ult, and he's also in my defense actually. Problem is, I stripped him off the gear, so he's kind of getting overrun.
Yeah, but the stun and slows, having 2 crowd control abilities is massive. And also that ult comes back pretty quick as well. It's not you know, crazy difficult to get him on the uptime. So he's a very good second tank, but he's not, again, it's that more support position necessarily rather
Flexible
than
position more than the
flex. Yeah.
tank. Yeah, that was Reef, kind of the last tank, not really the tank position, right? He has a bit of a different role. And now we have a bunch of heroes with the mages. Next kind of role we're going into. Mages have two kind of units. First up, they have the single target ones, and I think we can already discard them here. We talked about it. If one person has a brain cell, they will be abused. They will be piss useless. Even Nocturne, his true damage is not that high. Who else we have? Seraphina would have insane uptime. This Seraphina is one of them that I would like actually to talk about, because if that defender or if that demon soldier gets nerfed or changed or whatever, she would have insane upside. Not only is she an esotericist, which is amazing, but also she gets 40% bonus attack when that mystic flame is up. So she will be one of the heroes that will actually be able to pierce through the defenses of enemies and burst a lot of damage. She has a really low ult cooldown, especially with the Lord, and she's kind of a mini Praetus for Arena, but that's a whole different story.
But that's the sad thing about her and GvG is single target, you know.
It is. Then, do we have any other single targets? Imani, they're just all unusable more or less because of that one demon soldier. Then we have one more Praetus, right? Also unusable because he's single target.
Absolutely. Absolute god tier.
Yeah, I think honestly, Praetus, we don't even need to discuss it.
He's so good.
He's hanging out of my throat. I just can't talk about him anymore, and we all know.
I love it. He's great, but again, it's one of those things that what he does, not just as himself, but that Arbiter team is fantastic. But again, he is another role, the BP role. He is so good at BP boosting. Absolutely fantastic. I mean, most lords are, but Praetus is one of the best if you've got him for that. So yeah, he's absolutely god tier in so many ways.
Yeah, he's like 30k base BP. I mean, this is the reason why he's not here is he has a bunch of true damage and insane attack actually on top of that. So he's just chilling. Another one that is also not gonna be down low is someone that is single target, but he can actually nuke big AoE hits out there, and that is gonna be Solkadens.
Yeah, he's got that burst that he does is so powerful, and it's quite a quick uptime as well. But unfortunately, Infernals just aren't great. So again, it's one of those things that you would probably choose one of the others if you had them, but if you don't, Solkadens does some good damage.
Yeah, he's kind of like his whole faction is single target magic damage more or less, right?
Yeah.
And,
yeah.
Then we have a bunch of AoE mages and a bunch of interesting ones. And first one I want to talk about is, in my opinion, the one that is the most interesting, and that is Dahlia. So
yeah,
this is the new map that is going to come out. The defense towers will change, and Dahlia will have here a spot where she can just line up, and here a spot where she can just line up as well. And this will give her quite a lot of value actually, and because of that I think she will have great value. She will provide slows, good damage. The only issue I have, there are actually two that are making her still worse than the top tier mages, AoE mages, and that are, she does not hit air, and she is a cultist faction unit.
Exactly. But with this new map, we might finally start to see a use for the cultists. You know, there is that option. But yeah, I love the fact that they have literally made a spot for Dahlia.
It is. And there's many more spots to come. I have to make a video on the impact of the Watchlord that will impact Dahlia as well. So Dahlia, with that said, I think she has a lot of upside. Definitely, in my opinion, A tier.
I would agree. I think until she's thoroughly tested to see, you know, basically how good she is, I wouldn't put her above A tier. So
then 2 units I think we can talk about at the same time is Boreas and Comet.
yeah.
These two go kind of hand in hand. Boreas has more range and has stuns, freezes, and Comet does not, and that's the reason why he's just 1 step above.
Yeah.
Not
Pretty straightforward.
Not much to say about that, right? Then we have a few more. Now, Soleil is our first Giselle tier. She will be better. Most of the other AoE mages are better. So, for example, our girl Iona is going to be better. Then we will have Vierna. Now, Vierna suffers a lot here. She is really suboptimal because she wastes her ultimate. She just wastes her ultimate over and over. She can't time it. And that's her big problem. Kineza, her damage is underwhelming.
Rhea. She's so forgettable.
Kriya. Yeah. See, yeah, don't even remember her name. Don't even remember her name. Who else do we have?
Shamir is in that category, and
Shamir.
absolutely.
And?
Abizu? Probably.
Am I blind? I think Abizu could be a step above them, actually. Because she has Shred, she has magic resist Shred, and she is a Lord, which is why I put her 1 step above. She does better than all of these, definitely. Yeah. So next up we have pretty much one of the strongest mages. That is gonna be Ai. She is an absolute menace. She was a menace before that in the keeps. Now she's gonna be a menace here as well in the normal defense towers, right? Lead me through it.
So the reason she was such a menace in the keeps is because it had those winding path maps, which meant that her crystals got a huge amount of effectively space to do, whereas the tower was previously just a single straight line. So with here, she is absolutely primed for that spot that is below the portal that is getting highlighted now, because she is going to put crystals out a huge amount of what the path for the demon soldiers is going to take. So yeah, I think she's now going to be absolutely disgusting in both keeps and towers with this new map.
Exactly, because the problem she had in the normal towers before is she would waste time placing crystals where no one would ever walk, and with this new tower defense she has only 1 tile here that she's gonna waste time placing a crystal, right? With the other ones she can place them pretty much all in the direction where these guys are gonna walk, and she's gonna stun them. She's gonna deal a lot of damage. Freeze stun, whatever. And the reason for that is it's just better to have a freeze than Dahlia slows. On top of that, that nuke that she does, the damage is not to be underestimated.
Absolutely. I'd say, talking about crowd control, we then need to talk about the other 2 epics. So Greed, he is absolutely S tier. The thing with Greed is you don't build him as a mage, as in to do the damage. You build him with as much raged regen as possible so that he has that flow thing, as well as the debuff that he brings just effectively constantly. And that makes it really difficult because he also slows air. It's not just ground units, and that's what makes him so good in GvG.
It just makes it that if someone tries to overrun you with aerial attack, which is quite meta for many players, or just I'm just a guy who always goes for that, because that's kind of hard to defend often. He's there, he's gonna be like, no, you're not gonna make 1 step further. He's gonna slow them all. On top of that, his damage is nice, and the big thing, the reason why he's also up here is, right, not only does he have, where is it here, magic res reduction, slow, good damage, but also he's a nightmare unit. That's a big factor. He's a nightmare unit. he can be the mage for the Nightmare team, which is a meta team.
Yeah. And then Mari, who is the other one, is again that she's S tier as well. The again crowd control that she brings with that freeze is very underrated, I would say, in terms of the fact it is a full 3-second freeze, which is usually enough time for you to then get those ultimates coming back up. She has a long recharge time, which means you are going to be getting the other things, and then it's these debuffs as well and slow. So again, absolutely fantastic for making it very difficult for your opponent to get their demon soldiers through quickly.
Definitely. So she is just there for the utility, where Creed as well, but he also can deal some damage.
Yeah.
Then next up we have the two lords here. Now, you already told me about Demi, right? She has a lot of BP, is that right?
Yeah, she's got the highest BP for a lord, in terms of that you wouldn't then use. I don't know whether it is actually the highest BP for a lord, because a Tenta would build out, if you've got like a Praetus or whatnot. But she's not one that you would place on the map, but she's definitely one that will really benefit when you're trying to attack.
Then Morrigan, where would you put Morrigan?
She's A tier. She does nice amount of damage herself. And so, I think she's a solid A tier option. And I think especially if we are going to start having like Dahlia teams or different things like that, she is definitely the better option for a cultist lord as well. So,
would you consider her better than Soul Condense or not? Probably not, right?
I think they're on a similar level, if I'm honest.
She has,
I think,
quite good upside. Let's put it that way, right?
yeah. I would pick a Morrigan over a Solkadens, because again, you could chuck in a Greed and stuff.
Faction, yeah. I was just going through my head. You're right. I think the faction has more upside here. They also have someone like Captain Reeve, who shouldn't be underestimated.
Yeah.
But she is not on the same page as the Comet, in my opinion. She just doesn't
Not
have
at all.
the damage capabilities of these two guys, right? And of the third guy that deals a bunch of damage.
God tier. Absolute. Oh, I think the thing is like Ajax is one of those heroes that obviously when he was on that banner and getting talked about, everyone was like, oh, he's not that great. And it's like he is genuinely one of the most sought after units. The range that he does, the damage that he does that slow, he does that magic reduction, and he also has these lightning strikes that will completely decimate anything that you are trying to do, because it's completely random and you've got no idea if you're going to get hit by it. So this guy does it all in terms of what you're looking for an AoE mage.
He has disgusting range on top of that as well, not to forget.
Yep.
He slots in every team. Like, you can put him as a piercer. His range is gonna be stupid. You can use him there. He profits everywhere. And a big thing is also that, like, that, right? But also that if you get his artifact, I tested it, it's actually mental how strong his artifact is. Tear of Twilight is yeah, that's the new name for me. It's 6-month-old, still the new name. Is a really strong artifact, but his artifact is also really, really, really strong and doubles his ult duration.
Yeah, he is the best AoE mage.
He just has it all. Then the two Infernal Lords here, they provide some utility, not that much else. I think they're both not going to be essential key units that you're going to use in the end game. I think you can put him somewhere B. He will be just one step below in C, low C.
Absolutely.
So Anora, basically, the thing is, the problem I have with her is her damage is not gonna line up with the likes of a Comet and Boreas. She will have a lot of damage on her own though, and she will be quite strong. But for that, it is hard to say. Of course, we haven't tested her. The positive thing that I can tell you guys already, and that is something that she profits a lot in GvG, is unlike in all the other content, there is not going to be a Dolores buffing the other mages. So she does not care about it. And she is going to deal good amount of damage. The question is really how far does she go, and really that bone skill helps her out a lot. It helps her out a lot. But for me, she is going to be here kind of on the same point as Dahlia. I wouldn't reach up and say, oh, she's going to be S tier.
No.
I wouldn't reach up to say she's going to be same place as Comet. She has potential, just like Dahlia. But for now, A tier is solid.
And I think the only thing I would add is if she doesn't have a Ymeret, she will have less value.
Definitely. And 90% down. 90% down. And Kaede.
Again, absolute S tier if he's in a chaotic comp. He's one of those weird heroes that under the right circumstances makes it incredibly difficult to beat. But it's one of those difficult ones to talk about because it is so niche. It's so niche. Well, he's got these, like, again, summons. He does the vulnerability. He does AoE, and then the way he interacts with other chaotic units, it just, whatever reason, it makes him work, and it just works.
Yeah, he's a weird one. He is a weird one. I already talked to Jay and Chio in the arena tier list about him because he's absolutely nuts there as well. And I also talked with him like how I went over Apex Overlord team with Kaede. I knew he's gonna be strong. I just wanted to see like how he works, right? I faced him. I lost against him. I had no idea what happened. I had no idea how he did it, but he just somehow works.
I think that is literally it. It's like, don't know how it works, but somehow it does, and he's fantastic when he does his thing. But how it works, someone else will have to tell.
Yeah, he also has nice factions, right? He has nice factions, and his damage is good, and the vulnerability is a big thing in the GvG especially, which makes him deal quite massive damage. With that said, we're already on to the third role, which are going to be the healers.
Yep.
Now, the healers are kind of something that you always want to look for, and that is that they're not just going to heal, right? You really want some bonus utility from that healer, like, and we just similar to Praetus. I'm getting sick of talking about her, but like an Eloin with the Rage Regen, I'll put her right here actually because she's more versatile.
I think the only thing that doesn't get her to God tier is the fact that her range, I know when she ults, she has bigger range, but that range normally just doesn't give you a lot of options for placements. So I think with that new map, she will have some more options. But yeah, that is the only reason that to me she doesn't move all the way up.
Yeah, I think the new map especially will give you more options to spread out your heroes a bit more, which actually is kind of something different to the old map. The old towers, you just clump up everyone more or less anyways, and the ones that aren't clumped up are not gonna get hit anyways. But with this set, even with that, I mean, her Rage Regen is so good.
Oh yeah.
Not much to be said about that.
Hollow is your other Rage Regener. She's the second line next to Razak. Yeah. So if you're talking about Rage, you have to talk about Hollow. And again, she is another S tier healer, 100%.
You put her S tier, okay.
Oh yeah, because her range is fantastic. She's very fast at the heals. So yeah, absolutely, she is a very, very good option. If you don't, especially if you don't have an Eloin, this is who you want.
Especially the speed in which she applies that heals, and also she is able to heal multiple people at once in case someone tries to hit you with multiple units, right? So she, not only the rage, she heals a lot, right?
Yeah. And then the two other best GvG healers are Carnelian and Lily, which, just quick pause, I realized we don't have Lily on there.
I put her on.
She's in the bottom. She's next to Lust, middle row, down in the things. There, yeah.
I was putting her, I was thinking why, because Lily, some weirdo, I remember, I mean not some weirdo, but I was fighting once against some nightmare guy with the Lily at the Baron. Man, that Baron did not go down, I tell you. He was invulnerable, then he was invulnerable again, and then he was invulnerable again, and I was like, nah. And that sums it up, right?
Yeah. It's the fact that she has this undying, so she's S tier. Absolutely. She's fantastic. Same as Carnelian, because Carnelian will effectively make it very difficult for your units to die. The only issue with Carnelian is the fact it takes her a bit of time to put that up, so she is susceptible to very quick strategies, but if she gets them up, good luck.
Definitely, that's something that a lot of people don't know yet, but in the higher end GvG, like these unkillable teams with these unkillable buffs are just meta. They're just super good to have your units survive and not die.
Gwen is nuts when she's paired with a Haas. So she is solidly A tier, but for Northern comps, she is absolutely fantastic.
I mean, for Northern comps, I would even consider her as an S tier unit.
Yeah,
because
but
there are, let me think. No, because the new Northerner that comes in is also magic damage, and it kind of like that strong single target hitter, right? But what I can spoiler you guys, because I saw fast did this video, is that new Northerner mage that is gonna rinse in terms of the numbers if they don't adjust these numbers. He will have the same thing on his ultimate as Valkyra, and that is the higher the shield he has, the higher the damage multiplier. And Gwendolyn will be essential kinda for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then Gwendolyn is kinda unique, right? Then we have
Yeah.
more or less one more that fits in the role of Lily and Carnelian, but is not really on the same versatility level, right?
Yeah, so the thing with Ezran is if he is paired with Cyrus, that combination is, like I said, god tier, because there's something that he does in his kit which makes the skeletons and Cyrus effectively unbeatable. Or, well, not unbeatable, you can beat them, but very difficult to be able to beat, because again, it's that sort of, I think it's
talent, right? Damage taken
talent,
at
yeah.
a time will not exceed 60%, and he can also provide invulnerability, can't he?
Yeah.
With his ultimate.
So he's one of those ones that, again, if you're looking for a healer, I wouldn't pick him for your team. But if you are using him in certain comps, then he is absolutely fantastic. So that's why I would agree with A rather than higher than that.
So if you have him with the Cyrus, he's up here, generally
Yeah.
speaking, because not most people have him. Cyrus paired with the Cyrus, it would be a bit misleading. Now here we have kind of 4 straight up healers, more or less, 5 straight up healers left, that I just want to go through quickly. So Nisande is kind of the last resort that you go to. You could go to a Lightlock, but let's not talk about him now. No. Then Artemis is also kind of okay, right? He got the good heals. He does a little bit of damage as well. Ellen, I would actually put her in B tier as well, because her healing is insane. She brings some damage reduction. The faction she's in is a bit of a iffy one.
If you've got no other options, she will help your team survive.
Put her actually on top of B. Eunomia. What do you think of Eunomia here?
I think she's in C tier. Unfortunately, the only comp that she's viable in is an Arbiter team, and then that's why you have Constance.
Yeah.
So
she's kind of replaced there. She has a better option there. And then I'm gonna be biased with Leia, as I'm always with her. I'll put her in 8 here. I don't care.
I think that's fair. I think particularly with the buffs that you've been talking about and mentioning, I think, you know, the rage that she does is great. If she's going to now do better heals, I think she's great. And then we've just down to one more, which is Vortex.
And Vortex, yeah, he is also a great
next
one.
in the corner, yeah. And he's a good, solid A, no questions asked healer.
Exactly. Now, quickly back to, I mean, Vortex everyone knows, right? Quickly back to my favorite girl, Leia. First up, her healing is ridiculously high. Just for that. On top of that, in Guild Wars, units struggle, like we said, to survive in the end. And people resort back to unkillable comps. And now here's the big bonus here for the Watcher faction, is that their Lord bonus gives increased healing multiplier, which makes her healing even stronger. So her healing is top notch already. She has rage regen in her kit. She has, with her, artifact is nuts, by the way. You can go read it. It brings a bunch of stuff. She has rage regen. She has damage buff as well. And her Lord bonus will get a massive buff, up to 50% buff there, which will also be crazy. On top of that, the whole faction is starting to come together, because they have the building pieces. They have the building pieces to get a proper team together. If Lucius works as we would love to, the Watchers all of a sudden are an option. And even if Lucius does not work, we already have the new Watcher Lord coming. And that Watcher Lord is a single target magic damage dealer, but she can be swapped to AoE magic damage as well. And if she is there, you can also run a Watcher team there, and she is a fantastic healer all around the board. Watchers have a huge upside, and I think it's fair. Honestly.
I think that's fair. I think, if you're going to put Ezrin there, if you're going to put Gwen there, you know, that it's that thing of, definitely and has use.
They have the pieces. Like the Regulus is also one of the best tanks. Like it's a lot harder than you might think at the beginning.
The only reason I think Regulus is not higher is because of his faction. I literally think that's it.
And they are getting there. With the I shouldn't speak too much about Watchers. I'm starting to ramble a little bit here and there. I think we've got all the healers covered, don't we?
Yeah, we get the awesome Marksmen.
The Marksmen. So, which Marksman you want to talk about first?
That's it.
Okay.
That's it.
Doesn't take too long then, doesn't
it? Top level, yeah.
Doesn't take too long to
God tier. Absolute god tier unit. She is the best AoE marksman. Crazy damage, crazy burst damage, super fast ult, hits like a truck. Again, part of the Nightmare faction, and nothing else to say other than god tier.
This is a big one for her. Her ult, you can even place her in a way that she will not get her ult baited. So if people want to fly over, her ult is still up. She has, we don't have to talk too much about her. Everyone knows her nowadays, don't we? Next up.
Probably I would say it's the next two big single target marksmen, which are Silas and Sargak. So whilst Silas I would choose in pretty much every other piece of content, to me he is less than Sargak in GvG. Like something about Sargak with what he can do just beats Silas every time. So that's as long as Sargak is higher, we could do that. That works.
Now, for people wondering why is Sargak so high, Slate already explained it to me when we were talking about everything. I wanted to put Silas God here as well, but she made some good points that I also want to give you guys real quick. And that is, first up, Sargak gets a huge steroid with Gon. First up, that's massive. On top of that, while Silas during his ult just rinses everyone down, we all seen him. 90% of the people uses Silas, right? Just everyone loves him. People that don't know this, it might be a bit confusing, but the reason why Silas hits so hard is not because he has a 50% damage reduction. He has a 100% damage reduction in his kit. Did you know that? Of course he did.
I didn't know it was 100%, but that doesn't surprise me. He hits so hard.
Yeah. The reason many people think is because soul sniping ignores 50% of target's defense, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, becomes soul sniping ignores 50% of defense.
Oh, of course.
That ignores the defense and magic resist of the target. That ignores. It's 100%. War Guides actually. Thank you, War Guides, about that. By the way, made me aware of this a few months back when he did the testing, and he did guarantee it is 100%, because he doesn't during his ultimate get any bonus damage from an Idril's gaze. This is a simple way to test it. He has 100% defense rate. Now the reason why is Sargak higher, right? Now 90% of time Silas deals 10x the damage of Sargak. The reason why Sargak is higher is because Sargak, when he is able to stay at 1 HP, he's a menace. He's an absolute menace because his attack speed is so high then.
Yeah, and it's also the fact that while Silas's ult can pretty much wipe anything on the board, you can avoid his ultimate. You bait him and avoid his ultimate. Whereas with Sargak, yes, he's got that disgusting ult, but he also will then hit harder after his ultimate because he gets that his own HP goes down. So it is much harder to avoid a Sargak than it is to avoid a Silas.
Exactly, there's just less counterplay. Sargak's DPS while ult is down is just extremely high. I think everyone who has faced a Gon with the Sargak knows what I'm talking about. He just
you add a Carnelian in so that he actually can't die, and yeah, it's very, very difficult.
He just one-shots everyone.
Yeah.
Then next few pierces. Let's do a few single point target ones that are not that good. So Idril, she falls off a cliff. Same for pretty much all of the epics. So Brienne falls off a cliff. Alora, we're just gonna call her an epic for that as well. Falls off a cliff. Cratch is gonna be a different breed. And who else do we have?
We've then got Bruno, and Harpoon.
We could also call it Harpoon tier.
So bad. And Bruno is next to Setram. And again, Setram is single target burst damage. If you have absolutely no option, you can use him, but otherwise don't use him.
Yeah, he's like we said. The reason why these guys are so good are because they shred through defense. He doesn't. He has insane downtime on his ult, and even with his ult, he doesn't deal that much damage compared to Silas.
But his one bonus is the fact that he is a fantastic BP unit. So that is his saving grace.
Actually, I think
I'd almost do that. Yeah, I would almost do that.
Because, like I said, he's not that good at the defense. Not at all.
No.
BP
then
unit?
We have Lunaria. BP, Crash. Again, one of those ones that is quite funny in the fact that for whatever reason, Crash has very good BP. Because he's very common, a lot of people get awakenings from him, and awakenings are one of the best things to boost BP. So if you've got like an A3, A4 Crash, and you want to be competitive, you are going to skill that guy because he can easily get 100k BP without blinking. And that, once you get 100k BP and start pushing over, makes a huge difference in what you can and cannot do in GvG.
Yeah, Cratch, real quick, if you're listening, Moonton, remove the misfire, make his ultimate last for a longer than just one shot, and make it last for 600 cost, 500 cost, 10 seconds, 15 seconds, and make this damage increase, 30% damage increase from each basic attack that he increases from every unit, that this will become a debuff. Thank you, Moonton, for listening to my quick character guide for you guys here. And then next up,
Lunaria.
Lunaria.
If you do not have, I think she's B tier. You will sacrifice a spot for her because she herself isn't very good, but Piercer comps are very good. So again, if you are early on in GvG, she is a solid option for building a team, but she is not a solid option sort of as you start to progress up, if that makes sense.
Definitely. Quickly, I put Micah in here for the same reason as the others. Then
Calypso, and again, would be next to C tier. Again, she's that Idril, Alora kind of thing. She can hit. She's not great, but if you need something to hit air, so
hit. It does just not deal enough damage. She doesn't have the attack.
Razak, or do you want to do the Razak? Would be, I would say, B tier. He will hit air and he does AoE. Nyx is definitely A tier, 100%. If you have Nyx A3 or A5, she can be pushed into S or God tier. I don't know that. Yeah, she's probably around Morrigan level.
I think she is a bit above here. Like you said, I think Nyx, like nowadays, people started to use her everywhere. She has just a lot going for her. Her ult uptime, like we said, with the Saga Exiles comparison, uptime is a big thing. Her ult uptime is ridiculously high, especially at A3. Her damage is great as well, and she has one of the greatest kind of artifacts that you could get with her penetration.
I love the fact that Nyx is getting love. She was my first ever legendary, and I have a lot of time for Nyx, so I'm very happy she's now coming back.
She is like, she even in AoE arena, she's she can be used. She's just stable.
And then talking about AoE is going to be Maul. He is going to go into the A tier, and again, he's good. It's the AoE damage, but it's that knockback and freeze, which really doesn't. I'd put him next to Comet, if I'm honest.
Next to Comet.
He can really do stuff in different comps that make it difficult to come up against him.
Exactly. So he provides AoE, he provides slows and stuns. Does he provide slows?
Yeah, on the Awakening.
Okay, but this is also a big part here. This makes him able to actually hit hard as well. He provides a lot, especially for northern comps. When you see a Maul, he's a lot used. You see him often, and for good reason.
Exactly. Now we have Pelagios, who's on that bottom. Easily S tier hero. But he should go next to Constance because again, you are looking at that Arbiter lineup. But the thing that's really cool about Pelagios is his little whirlpool thing. Is
Vortex.
His vortex. That's a better way. Whirlpool thing. Is again very difficult to get past. So in my mind, he sort of does the job of a greed as well as a marksman and stuff like that.
I would actually, I think you can also run him in a Piercer comp, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think he's more versatile than Constance. I think he, as for AoE, he does provide a lot. I would have put him up here.
Yeah, that's fine.
Because he has true damage, he has CC, he has magic damage. He doesn't have the upfront burst consistent at the beginning, but he ramps up throughout the fight as well. Then
Theowen is the other crowd controller. He would be A tier in my opinion. He is used in a lot of comps because he has this slow again, and he hits air, but I personally don't think he himself is a very top tier unit.
Yeah, Theowin provides just for the utility. He doesn't deal any damage at all. I mean, not much. Let's put it this way. But also one big plus for him that has come in now that is good for the GvG, extremely good for GvG, is this right here, right?
Oh yeah, he's got his new artifact, doesn't he? So he could now actually try and hit air units, which beforehand not very good.
And on just the vulnerability, right, is nice. It
Yeah.
is nice.
Yeah.
Then the two lords, I think, even though she's a fighter, I'll put her in, I'll do it right now, right?
Yeah.
So
Well, we're going to move on to fighters after, so it's a nice transition.
Perfect transition. So Silas, value higher Boreas, I'll put him. She is kind of unmatched as well in terms of lord. I'll put him right here, and I'll put her one step above right here.
Yeah. I mean, Ivar's got that great burst damage. Again, he is a Piercer Lord. He will hit air. He's fantastic. But there is something so special about Araka that I think is so often overlooked in GvG. One, she is a ground unit, so she's not going to be taking away your precious platform tiles. Two, she is a Piercer Lord. Three, she does amazing crowd control with her spider webs. 4, she's pretty tanky, so she works as a secondary tank. She also stuns. She can hit air. I mean, literally, what more do you want from a unit? I think the only reason she's not god tier is that she doesn't do the damage that you would want from a god tier unit.
Definitely, but she is. And thinking about it, I think the raw fact that Iovar is a platform unit, I need to check real quick, is gonna put him actually quite a bit lower. I think I'll put him right here. Now hear me out first. The reason is because the main unit you're going to play around are these two, right? If you play piercers, they already take up a platform spot. Then for the AoE damage, the main units again are gonna be platform mages, which kind of makes you really want to have a ground unit. So for that fact, if they had an AoE mage in the Piercer faction, which is unlikely to come anytime soon, unless you have a Pelagios, most of people don't have them. And if you don't have them, right, then all of a sudden just
but you would definitely use Ivar,
of course.
if you've got him, and you don't have an Araka. The only thing I would just say is if that's a line, then Greed definitely needs to be moved up higher. I'd put him next to I, probably. Yeah, because he's just so good.
All right, now with the two Piercer Lords out of the way, let's go over the fighters. And for the fighters, there's also, just like for the Dahlia, for example, gonna be quite some interesting changes that we have to see. And the first kind of spot that you're gonna be looking at when looking at these fighters, right, is going to be, do you know if these units walk this way, or do you know if they walk this way?
They don't walk up that way. They go down the bottom. Everything that I've seen says that they go down the bottom.
Okay, because then this tile would be hella free.
Yeah. So you've got 2 spots now for melee fighters that previously haven't been able to be used because they've only got that 1 tile range. So yeah, you've got that spot that spot there, and then the other one that you were talking about as well.
So the big thing for the fighters in the new defense is gonna be that spot right here, because that all of a sudden enables short range fighters to maybe be actually useful now, because before that 1 tile fighters, right, like a Kineza for example, like a Salazar, you cannot place them anywhere. They don't have a spot. They just get hit by the archers, hit by the mages, and they're gone, or even by the aerial attacks. So with that spot, you can place them here in theory. Place a unit on these tiles, and the archers will focus them instead of that fighter, And all of a sudden, that fighter becomes viable now to start attacking here, which opens up a lot of possibilities for new fighters to actually be implemented in these defenses.
And it's the same on that bottom with that 3. If you put the tank next to where you would put the Dahlia, you then have that fighter spot as well,
Exactly.
who's not in the direct path. So there's 2 spots here for those melee fighters, potentially.
But before we just go over the melee fighters, let's go for a few that we can just get out of the way right off the bat. So arrogance and yeah, let's start with arrogance. I think he is up here.
Yeah.
Right next to Boreas. Even might even be up above Boreas if
I'd put him in front of Boreas because he does that AoE. He's another ground unit. He hits air. His ultimate hits like a tank. Truck. He is fantastic, and the more awakenings you have, the nastier he gets. So
yeah. I agree 100% because he is the best fighter, long range fighter that you can have. Whereas
absolutely,
Boreas has that Ajax right above, looking at him. Then another fighter that is even better. Gonna be Ardea. Oh, yeah. Lead me through it. I mean, we don't need to talk much about her, but
not much to say other than the fact that it is literally that she is the best long range fighter that you can have in GvG. She is part of that dual faction of Chaotic Northerner, but really, the thing is there's been a meta in this last map of Ajax and Ardea together being just an absolutely horrible combination. You also compare her with an Araka for the crowd control. She's got this is it defense reduction, or she's got another
A1.
one of these debuffs on her A1, which you don't even need, but makes it even harder. And yeah, her only downside is the fact that she doesn't hit air, but the teams that you use her with, that doesn't really seem to devalue her. So yeah.
Exactly. So her attack is just so high, and her defense threat as well. She can apply bleed. She does AoE. Her consistency of the damage is extremely high. We talked about it. She doesn't really have downtime. No. And even though she doesn't hit air, she is just a menace. She has 2 factions that work amazingly for GvG, which is also a plus, right?
Yeah, she's great. And then speaking of menaces, it is Valkyra. She is absolutely amazing. She's definitely S tier. The only reason I wouldn't put her above, yeah, I'd put her there actually. The only reason she's not higher is because on her basic she doesn't hit air. She'll hit air on her ultimate, but if she's not ulting, you know, there is a chance to go over her. But the AoE damage that she does is phenomenal. So
she has a lot of things. Again, she has 2 good factions. She has a revive. She has a huge attack for a magic damage fighter because of that sort of victory passive, and she can hit like a truck as well with the Northerners. And it is really, the only downside is really, like you said, she cannot hit air without her ult, which makes it sometimes when I attack Valeria Valks, I just bait out her ult and then I fly over, right?
But this is the thing, if you then pair her with, so this is the thing with the Northern, because they don't really have as good anti-air, it's not helpful, but you pair her again in an Arbiter squad, you've got Pelagios and Praetus for the air. So yeah, and again, that bottom corner tile for her is just perfect. You've got the tank in front, which means she is not going to be susceptible to bombs, because if you're trying to bomb the tank, not that you do bomb a tank, but anyway, it gives her that bit of space. And then when she pops her shield, she gets even longer. So yeah, she's great.
She is. Then who else do we have? Kind of the long range fighter. Silitu is not so good. She is.
I mean, I'd probably put her maybe B tier at the most. And that is because she does a good amount of damage. She does hit air, but it's all single target.
Exactly. And that's kind of her problem. Absan, yeah.
Apsen, I would again put B tier. I know that might be a bit controversial. Less, definitely less. And but again, he is a ground unit. He does hit air, and he is part of that piercer. So he's quite a good option if you don't have any of the meta long range fighters.
Definitely. Then Giselle, my favorite, get her out of here. I'm not going to talk about her. Her ultimate deals less damage than one auto hit from Valder, and it pisses me off. Pisses me off.
And then I think we've got a few what I'd call mid-range fighters. So your Estrid, your Rourke, they are all probably good C tier options where they will reach in front of a tank. They can help you out early on. Yeah, somewhere in the middle. Probably Estrid I'd put next to Iona. I have a big soft spot for Estrid. She's got AoE damage. Yeah, she's tanky, AoE damage, defense reduction. Very nice. Ein's up to you.
Ein's up to me, so Ein is gonna be
Giselle probably.
yeah, right here. I mean, he gets some buffs. He'll get some buffs. I'll need to really look into them closer. Then some units that I want to go over is Abomination. He's kind of the same as Captain Reef. He fulfills the same role as Captain Reef, and he's actually one of these fighters that is quite strong. And I would put him in A tier, right next to Captain Reef.
Yeah, he's
maybe even better. He's better than Captain Reef, honestly.
Yeah, I'd put him next to Baron, to be honest, because again, that Nightmare combination, he does those AoE stuns. He himself is super tanky, and you don't even necessarily have to build him with a lot of HP to get him to have a lot of HP. So he does a surprising amount of damage. He does the crowd control. He's part of Nightmare, and he stuns.
There's a lot going for him.
Yeah.
So then we have a few more. So magic damage dealing fighters, right? We have Thelen. Problem is he is butchered Valk, even though he is not in the normal summoning pool. We have Magda, who deals a shit ton of damage. Their problem is just the aerial defense they're not good in. Then on top of that we have the Scorch. He's gonna be in C tier. His damage is gonna be neglectable at some point. Rourke, same thing, he's not good. Deimos is gonna be right here with these guys. I'll come back to it. Helga,
we just don't know. I think again she's got that esotericist faction which is in her favor, so I think B is a safe option for her for now. But very interested to see how she performs.
I think she'll not perform that well, I'll be honest. Similar to Nobson, because the defense thresholds. And you want to build her with attack. Although, what I can say is her ult uptime is going to be ridiculously high.
Volker is interesting in the fact that she's good in those as a second slot in the Nightmare comps. She does that AoE and defense or like debuffs, which is really good. She surprisingly hits hard since she got her buff, which is nice. She does the lifesteal, but I wouldn't necessarily say she's anything more than a good B tier hero.
I agree. I think she is up here because of the Nightmare faction, and because she can be tanky enough with her HP and her lifesteal.
Now we get to move on to the big theory crafting with these what you call single target melee. Other than just very quickly, Wrath, even though he is single target, because he is a Nightmare Lord, he is definitely probably B or A tier. In the fact that if you're using him for the Lord bonus, probably A tier with Abomination, but as a unit, B tier.
As a unit, B tier.
Yeah, and I think that's fair.
Upside can really go to up A, just like many of these heroes that we're going to talk about now, and that is, we mentioned it earlier, this tile right here, if you're able to make that work, all of a sudden options for fighters change drastically, because fighters are the only ones that are able to really do the job of a Zagak and a Silas in terms of single target. They are the only ones that can do that. And with that said, first up, I think a few ones that are going to be decent but are not going to be crazy. Let's start with them. There's going to be Kineza. I would put her in, where did I put her? In C tier.
C tier. Same with Magmus.
Same with Magmus. And Deimos as well. I put lower than them. I think Deimos is actually quite lower than them. Reason being, Daemon wants to ramp up against one single enemy, and you kind of don't have that time. You just want to get that one single enemy out of the way as fast as possible.
I think Ares is potentially similar level, but maybe slightly better than those guys because of his defense reductions. So, again, I put him in C because we just don't know yet if that tile's going to work. But if that tile does work, he gets slightly better. So
definitely. So Ares, I think Ares and Magmus, they have both quite a good upside. Ares, because of his defense reduction and vulnerability, good unit, and Magmus simply because of his insane attack. He has AK attack. His AoE damage is great as well. His tankiness is great as well. If that tile works, he's gonna be quite viable. But for now, it is more or less speculation.
Yeah, and I think Lugaru. The problem is, I'd say Lugaru and Salazar cannot be placed on the board because they are fantastic, but only if that tile works. Exactly. Don't you think?
Yeah, I agree. Same with Arena, right? These two can obliterate enemies in no time. And if that tile works right there, ladies and gentlemen, this tile, like you said, Salazar, you would even get up to even S tier or at least A, right? S
easily.
I think is maybe a bit of reach, but A for sure.
Yeah, I think A tier because I think the thing is Salazar is sort of very overlooked in the fact that because he is that single target fighter, they're not very popular. But the sheer damage that guy can do, if it works, it's going to work. If it doesn't work, again, he's not going to have a place.
The reason why we put these guys here, these nightmares, in the list all of a sudden as well, is because these are not the core units that you're going to be looking for. But if we place a Salazar into A tier or a Lugaru into a high A tier, and you're going to see them, and then you're trying to place them and you don't find a spot, right? It is untested. If that spot doesn't work, and you have a unit in A tier, whereas if that spot doesn't work, Magmus is still going to be C tier, right?
Yeah, exactly.
If it works, he's going to go to B tier. If it doesn't work, is C tier, because considering the fact that you are considering B tier units makes it that most likely you're not going to place the perfect orders anyways, which is why these kind of units work as well.
Yeah. And then that leads us on to Elder, I would say, who is, I'd probably say A tier. He's a Northern Lord. He does hit well, but he is not as good as a tank. So yeah, I would say A tier. Probably again Morrigan, Solkadin's level.
I agree. Right there where I would have put him. Valdoran is hitting like a truck though.
So he goes into S tier.
Guarantee you he is going to actually surprise people. I think he's going to surprise people a lot.
A tier?
Where? No. Where would you put him in A tier?
So I think the thing is, again, because he's that chaotic lord, to me that pushes him up into S tier.
I mean in S tier, sorry.
I'd put him near I.
Okay, then I'll make my point here.
Okay.
I don't think he's the best actually.
As long as he's lower than a Raka, because I just don't think you get the utility. Oh, okay, controversial.
Exactly, because that Valdoran works guaranteed, right?
Yeah.
He cannot get one shot by mages. He's too tanky.
Yeah.
And he is the type of guy that can start doing dish out the damage like a Silas does. He can, on top of that, deal a lot of AoE damage. And only because of that already, his value is really high. Now, the reason why I put him here,
it's the new map. Yeah,
it's the new
I
map.
think that's fair. New map. I can get on board with that.
Because with that tile here, he will work.
Yeah.
He's not
Oh
gonna,
yeah.
He's not gonna get one shot on that tile.
No.
So you can just place him here for sure, guaranteed, and he's gonna be lining up shots here, left and right.
Jira, I would say. At the moment we don't really know too much about how she'd work. So, but we do know she's going to have more BP than Uridin. Is that right? Have I completely made that up?
No, that's true.
Nope. So I'd put her in the BP for now, but hopefully, she'll also see some light.
I'll be honest, I don't think so. I'll be honest. I don't think she's gonna work at all, other than the BP. I tested her in that.
Oh, okay, you tested her. See, I haven't seen her in action, so
she's not here yet. But basically, I tested her, and what she does, right, is the only time she does damage, really. First up, she has one tile range. The only time she does damage is when she reflects damage.
Oh, okay.
And she's not gonna be able to tank.
No, she can't tank.
She's not gonna. She can actually have 200,000 plus HP. So there's that. But who's gonna heal that?
No.
I don't think she's gonna work as a tank. And if she doesn't work as a tank, she's not gonna work at all, because her damage mainly comes from reflecting damage. If you want to use her as a fighter, use Abomination.
Yeah. So the final one is gonna be Ymrit, and he is all yours.
Okay. So I tested Ymrit, and he will have the same benefits as Ajax does. Now, is he gonna be end up God tier? Well, I'm not gonna lean that far out of the window yet. But what I like about him for GvG is his range, his freeze. That's the main part. And that he is unnamed, so he slots in every team, he gives them a damage buff. That's the things that I value him about. It's not the damage, right? His damage is not the damage of a Boreas, but the thing is that 50% freeze uptime increase is also crazy, and that could really mean some disgusting CC consistently applied on enemies that roll in, and it could end up being a immediate meta together with more freezes, where you just line up CC after CC after CC,
and the people just don't stand a chance. You know, particularly with an eye or different things like that. It depends how it all interacts together, but I completely agree. Top of A tier, he's going to be a solid fighter. He is a solid option for your teams. Whether he sneaks into the meta is going to be something we can look out for.
Upside up to God tier for sure, but
yes,
before testing, he's gonna be on top of the A tier for sure. So yeah, I think that wraps it up. Do you have any closing remarks of what you want to change, or are you happy with it?
I'm happy. I think the only thing I would say, and I think this is probably, you might say this yourself, is that with tier lists, there's so many variables, and with something like GvG, it is all about that comp. So again, if you're looking at that top line, just because they're all God tier, you don't want to have 3 tanks. So just because you have those 3, you're not going to create a defense with 3 tanks. Exactly. I mean, maybe in the future, but yeah.
That's a good call on the outro as well. And of course, make sure to keep in mind that metas can always change, just like this map changes, just like certain new heroes get introduced to certain factions, that all of a sudden maybe curse teams become meta, right? Who knows,
exactly.
Right? So things can change. This is it for now. I think I'm really happy with it. I think it's hella accurate. Mainly, of course, also thanks to a lot of insight from Slate. Of course, make sure to check her out. She does amazing content, not just GvG, so it's worth a visit for sure. And Do you have any last word you want to say?
Bring on season 4.
With that, I hope to see you again. And I'm Ronaldo. And I'm out. Peace.